Okay, well today I'm going to do the final video in this short series on making an Altair 8800 terminal all in 88 assembly. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing file opening and then file sending. There's really only two things to do, right? Open the file and send the file, but there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of checking file names and stuff like that. So we'll get into that. Also, do note that this probably is not the best way to do it. There's probably much more efficient ways of doing it, but this is what I got. I haven't really had any help with this at all. So, yeah. Buckle up, folks. It's going to be a long night. Let's get a little sauce for the road. Refill your cup as needed. And trust me, we will need it tonight. Okay, so first things first, let's go over some housekeeping. I renamed W line for WR line for write line and WR line and RD line with printf and read line. So just know that. And then we're going to add a few more defines here. So we're going to add openf. We're going to set that to 15 because that is the BDOS call to open a file. Then we're going to do readf. We're going to set that to 20, and that is to read the file. So there's one to open the file, and there's one to read the file. And we'll talk about the difference later. This particular BDOS call is read sequential, and that's most of what you'd use. Let's do another one called FCB. FCB is file control block, and we're going to set that to 5CH. Then let's do another define. Let's call this MSCNC, microsecond count, equals, and this we'll do this arbitrary number, 132. We'll get back to that later on in this video. Just remember it stands for microsecond count. Then let's do another block here. Let's do FCB-FN, file control block file name, to FCB plus 1. Let's do file control block FT, file type is what it's called, FCB plus 9, and then FCB CR EQU. The FCB CR is file control block current record, FCB plus 32, and if you notice, these are just offsets from the file control block address. So we can save. And then let us move forward quite a bit. So we're going to jump all the way down to S file. Remember, this is the send file subroutine that gets called when you hit Control S. And we're going to do a new line between the call new line and read in buff. And we're going to do 3 separate calls. We're going to do call init FCB, call copy FCB. Right, there's an auto tab. And then we're going to do call open FCB. And let's do some comments here. Okay. Call setup FCB routine. And then copy FCB. Call copy FCB routine. And then call open file routine. Okay, So now we have those three in, and let us jump down to below the exit and above the memcopy. Here we are. Let's get ready, folks. So we are going to do a new label here. The first subroutine we call is initFCB. And let's do that. So initFCB, what does this mean? So first, what the FCB is the file control block. It is a group of 33 or 36 bytes, starting at, well, the default address is 5ch in CPM. Although you can change it, there are ways of changing it, either in hardware or in software. It's just a location of those bytes, and what it is it's basically all the settings you want for your file name, your file type, what record you're on, what record you're going to read, is it even open, what drive it's on, and there's a ton of other settings that you might not ever use, but they're all detailed in the yellow manual. The ones we are interested in is the file name, the file type, and the current record. Luckily for us, we don't need to do anything special with the extra bytes, so we can just set the entire file control block zeros, all zeros whenever this subroutine is called. So we basically wipe the FCB and then reinitialize it each time. And to do that, we need a memset function. So first I do LXI, right, load immediate double, HL, FCB, load FCB address to HL. Then let's move immediate a 0 to A. Set byte to memset2, MVIC 36, set memset length, and then we're going to call memset. Call memset routine. Okay. Before we move on, let's make our memset routine. Memset move MA. So basically, we're going to move the character that's in. We're going to move the byte that's in A to the address HL. Byte in A to HL. Increment HL. We're going to decrement C, which is the counter, and then jump not 0 back to memset. So basically, if not 0 loop, and then return if it is 0 from subroutine. Okay, let's back up and continue, shall we? So we have now completely set the file control block to all zeros. Now let's set the file name and extensions to all spaces. Now this is important because CPM has the 8+3 file name limitation. So you have up to 8 characters for the file name and up to 3 characters for the file extension. If you think back to DOS and early Windows, it was the same thing because it was a carryover from CPM. We're going to set the file name and extension to spaces first, so we don't have to deal with it later. So if you have like a 5-character file name, you just copy the first 5 characters, skip the next 3, and then copy the file extension. And because it's all spaces, it doesn't matter. So let's do that. MVI A space set byte to memset2 MVI C 8+3 set counter to 8 plus 3 file name, LXI H FCB FN, load SCB FN address to HL, call memset, routine, and then I can do return. Okay, boom, init FCB is done. We have now initialized the FCB. We have set it all to zeros, and then we set the file name and then the file extension to all spaces. Now, if you looked at the yellow manual, what you'll notice is that the file name and that is 8 bytes, and then immediately afterward, it's 3 bytes for the file extension, which is why we didn't have to load the file extension address. We could just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way through. Now we're done with that, let's move on to the next call. This is copy FCB. And, okay, folks, bear with me on this one. It's going to be a doozy. So, what copy FCB is, basically, it's taking the file name that you typed, converting it to all uppercase, and then copying it into the file control block, file name and file extension parts. It has to be uppercase because CPM will only open uppercase files. A very interesting note is that when you call or when you start a program in CPM, it will take the first 120 bytes or so, or whatever, maybe 64 bytes, whatever, of the parameter space, and then try to put it in the file control block. So if I do like a pip command or a copy command and I do my 2 file names, it will actually put that file name into the file control block file name part, automatically convert it for me, and just do everything for me. Don't have to touch anything. But this is outside of that. This is outside of that call, so we have to do it ourselves. There might be a way to hook into that part of CPM. I don't know the hooks, which is why we're doing this. Okay, so let us load accumulator inbuff plus 1. So if you remember, inbuff is the file name buffer that you typed in. 0 was the max length of the file buffer, of the string. The next byte was how many characters you've typed. And then the next character is the start of the actual string that you typed. So get number of chars typed. That's going to be put into the accumulator. And then CPI, we're going to compare it to 8 plus 1 plus 3, right? We're going to compare it to the max 8. The max 8 characters for the file name, 1 for the period, and then 3 for the file extension. Compare to max file name length. And if it's greater than, well, then it's an error. So JZ, jump if 0, file check count. Jump to good if A is less than 13. JNC file name error. Jump to error if A is greater than 13. So this is actually less than or equal to. So let's look at this for a second. Okay, so a little slight tangent here, but very important. This is how you do inequalities in 8080 assembly. There are no greater than, less than, equal to flags, like some other languages will let you. The 652 comes to mind. They'll let you branch if equal to, less than, greater than, all that sort of stuff. This language, however, 8080, will only let you branch or jump on flag sets. The 0 flag is set if any arithmetic operation is a 0 or less than 0. The not carry is set if it's greater than, if the operation was greater than. So if I did a CPI and it ended up being greater than, it's not carry. There are ways to check if it is separately less than, equal to, or greater than, but it's not really straightforward. It's not really elegant, but I will put a link down in the description for you to check out. It's very helpful. I use it all the time. Okay, so now let's put in the pass-through. File check count. All this is going to do is just going to all this part is going to do is going to set the ending character. LXI H in buff plus 1. What I'm just going to do is going to set HL to start of in buff string, and then call SetEnd ch. Call SetEnd ch. This here is a new function. All it is basically cutting part of a function from before and then putting it in its own subroutine. So if you see here in the read-in buff, we have the SetEnd character. We're going to cut from the MVI to the bottom of it, and we're going to move it to its own subroutine, SetEnd ch. So let's mark the beginning, SetEnd. And we're going to put in SetEnd ch. KV, I think it is. Yes. And then just make sure you put a return at the end. Let's go back up. Put a call SetEnd ch. Okay, so now let us work on copying the file name. So okay, so let us LXI H in buff plus 2. What does this do? Load first character of string to M. Then LXI D, FCB FN. Load FCB FN address to DE. And then here's the start of the file name loop. FN loop. MOV AMs move M to A. Copy HL to A. CPI period. Check if period. JZ copy extension. So if so, copy extension. I should say jump to. Then CPI A, lowercase a, minus 1. So what this does is it will see, check for caseness. Basically, I'm now setting flags to see if you're uppercase or lowercase. Remember, uppercase characters are lower on the ASCII stack than lowercase. Uppercase characters are lower on the number stack than lowercase letters. And to see if it is less than, you do JC, jump if carry is set. JC not low. If not lowercase, pass through. And here's the conversion. A and I and immediate 110 1101 1111 B. Convert to uppercase. So what this does is basically takes the ASCII code that you have and turns off the 6th bit. And that's all you have to do to turn a lowercase into an uppercase. And then this is the pass-through. So not low. Stacks, or store accumulator to double address. D, right? And remember, D was loaded with FCBN. A to FCBN. And then increment the increment string char, increment D, increment FCBN, FN, and then jump FN loop. Okay, so we have now copied the file name. Now we have to copy the extension. I have thought about trying to like reuse the not low subroutine, but I couldn't figure out how to like use it agnostically, and I just gave up and just copied it for each one. Okay. Increment H. So basically, increment past the period. LXI. The FCB FT. So load DE with SCB file type address. Then extension loop. Move AM to A. CPI. We're going to check to see if it is the ending character, because if you remember, we did the set end character. That was important because we wanted to basically, you have your file name, and then at the very end put it the end of line character. I made the end of line character a $, so that you can then use generic BDOS calls for print if you needed to debug this. Instead of counting 1, 2, 3 bytes for the extension, it just basically just copy until you hit the end of the string. If end of extension, and then RZ. So RZ is return 0, right? So return if so. If not, though, CPI, we want to see if it's lowercase, right? A -1. Check for caseness. And then basically we do the same thing as before. JC, not low E, because not lower extension. If not lowercase, pass through. And then convert A and I, 1101 1111 B, convert to uppercase, not low E, stacks D, right? Store A to FCBFT, H, increment string char, and XD, increment FCBFT, JMP, that's right, X loop. This is why. So the reason I didn't do it agnostically is because the jump FN loop and jump ext loop are different. There's I could probably push addresses to this stack and then pop them off. Basically, just like you can swap. You can push addresses to the stack and then pop them off. So basically, I could just have a subroutine that takes. It just basically takes where you want to jump after the fact. But I just wanted this done, so I just copied it straight through. But if you want to go ahead and do the extra mile and do it the right way, please go ahead. Just make sure you post the source code for the rest of us peons. Okay, so now we have copied the file name and the file extension. So we're almost on the home stretch here. Now all I have to do is just open the file, or attempt to open the file. So if you remember the last the third of the three calls that we made, we did init FCB, we did copy FCB. Now we're going to do open FCB, and this is going to be the rest of the stuff for us to do. So we're going to do open FCB. So call open. So this is just going to call the open file fill subroutine. CPI, we're going to check to see if it returned 255. Check return code, because the open BDOS call basically dumps something into the A register. If it's 255, that means it failed. So JNZ open OKL. So basically, if opened, so if it's not 255, jump to open OK, and then jump otherwise open no OKL, else jump to open no OK. Okay, so now let's do those two functions we just did. So open OKL. I did L just as a denominator. Again, this is probably not the best way to do this, but I just wanted this done. So call new line, right? So print new line. Call open OK. Call open OK. Routine. We're going to make that later, don't worry. And then we're going to return. So it seems that 88 assembly has a lot of calls, or maybe assembly in general, just basically a lot of subcalls, because you don't have functions. So this is the next best thing. So then we're going to do open no KL. Call open, wait, so first new line, print new line, call open no OK, call open no OK, routine, and then return. Okay, Do you remember the FLN error thing we called, basically file name error? Let's do that right now. So LXID. So this is basically just a printf. That's all we got to do. The file name error message. I think that's what I want the thing. Load message to print, and then MVI C printf load set bdos call bdos, right, and then call new line, print new line, and then return. Okay, looks good. And then let's do the open subroutine that we wrote, right? So this is going to be interesting. So when we open the file, we want to make sure we open the first record. Do remember that in the init.fcb, we've set everything to 0. So this first part isn't really necessary, but yeah, just do it just in case so that you can call it later on, or use it as a template for everything else. So we want to basically just store a 0 to the FCBCR memory location. So we can save a byte by doing XRA. Well, A. Basically XORing the accumulator with itself. That's only 1 byte. If I did LDA, it'd be 2 bytes, right? It'd be the register and then the immediate data. But because A XOR A equals 0 all the time, we can just do this. Set A to 0. I guess I could technically say 0 out A, and store accumulator to FCBCR, right? Set FCBCR, remember FCBCR is FCB current record, to 0 first. LXI DFCB. So the open, which is what we're going to do, set D to FCB address. What the MVIC open F. What the open file BDOS command takes is it takes in DE and C, or BC. It takes in DE and BC. DE needs to be the file control block address. It can be literally any address, but the default for CPM is 5C. But it can be anything as long as you have it set up correctly. If you have it set up correctly, it doesn't care. And then make sure BC is loaded with 15 in there. So set BDOS call, and then of course you want to call BDOS, and then return. Okay. Now let's do the open OK and the open not OK subroutines. So let's do this. Open OK. So first let's call a new line. Print new line. And then this is where the magic happens. The whole purpose of opening a file all this time was to send it over serial. So now let's call another subroutine called send file. We have not wrote this function yet, but we will. And then once you're done sending the file, well, return. And because we made such a deep stack, I think the stack was 32 bytes, we should be fine, calling. Just keep in mind about the stack, but because we made such a deep one, again, we should be okay. Don't have to worry about it. Now let's make the open no okay. Call new line, print new line, LXI. So the open file didn't work. Let's print a message. D open no KMSG load message address MVIC printf. You know the drill. Okay, so those two functions are done. Now, for the fun part, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come this far and we will finish it right here and now. We will do send file. This is where the magic happens, folks. And actually, side note, I swear, this manual right here comes in handy. I highly recommend you get your hands on this manual. This is amazing. This has saved me so much. It is basically just a book full of just subroutines and how-tos and whys and explanations about doing things with the 8080 processor in assembly. The writer or publisher of this book also did one for the Z80, which I have. They did one for the 6502. Which I have now, and then they did one for the 6800. They did one for many processors. Cannot recommend this book enough. These do run a bit expensive, so if you have like a local bookshop that can maybe cut you a deal, definitely go with it. I'm one of those guys who love, in print, in hand books. I used this to figure out delays. This has like 16-bit multiplication, division, tons of things. Please get this book if you're doing anything serious with 8080 assembly. It will just save your life. So let's start this show, shall we? Remember, in 88 assembly, there's nothing saying you can't stack labels, so let's do that right now. Just make it a little bit easier. F read loop. So basically, we're making the file read loop. So LXI D FCB load DE with file control block address. We're going to do MVIC read F, right? Set BDOS call, and then call BDOS, and then we're going to do CPI 0. We're going to compare it against 0, and if it is not 0, well, then that means there was a read error. F read error. Okay, so what does all this mean? So basically what the read file BDOS call does is it takes DE, which will be your file control block address. Again, remember, could be anything you want. Just make sure it's set up correctly with your file name and current record you want to read and all the others, which by usual default standards is all 0. All the rest are 0. Send in 20 on C, and then call BDOS. And what happens is it takes the record that you set, in this case 0, right? First round is 0. And it just copies the first 128 bytes of that file into the buffer location. And the buffer location is location 80H. If you remember back a couple of video or two ago, I talked about copying the memory location 80H to a separate spot. And this is because 80H also contains the parameters that you typed in when you first ran the program. We're not doing any parameter calling, but just in case, what I did was I did a mem copy from there to another location in my program. So 80H is now safe to use. It's the first 128 bytes. 128 bytes is now filled with the file that you opened. Now, what's interesting is that say your file is longer than 128 bytes, right? Most files are usually longer. What happens is you call read file, it fills the buffer, so you can then just increment through and do whatever you want to do. But then you're like, oh wait, what about current record? I have to then increment current record to then read the next round. Well, guess what? The read file call already does that. Once you do a read file, it auto increments that counter, so you can just keep calling read file, read file, read file, read file, and just loads next 128 bytes, next 128 bytes, next 128 bytes. So you don't have to do that. Now, what if you have less than 128 bytes in that record? Well, this is where it gets interesting. In many of the CPM manuals, or all the CPM manuals, they'll mention something called an end of file byte. And this byte is hex 1A. I don't remember which manual I read it from. It was a red CPM manual book. I would love to get my hands on it, but I don't have a physical print. Anyway, if I personally run into a hex 1A, that means it's the end of file, because all I want this terminal to do is just send paper tapes. And paper tapes just send plain text, carriage return, and line feed. That's all they do. So it is up to you to figure out what to do if you want to send like a binary that has an end of file byte in it. That wasn't supposed to be an end of file byte, just happened to be 1A. Good luck. There are ways to do it. I'll try to find that manual and put the link down in the description so you guys can check it out. If you had no clue what I just said, don't worry. Just follow what I'm doing and you'll be okay, as long as you want to send plain text and line feeds and carriage returns. Okay, and let's continue. So then we do MVI C128. This is going to be a counter. Set C counter to 128, because remember I said 128 bytes is the record length. LXI H buff, and remember set HL to buff byte. And remember I said the first 128 bytes goes into the buffer location. So now let us loop. Byte read loop. Move A, M, right? Copy M to A. Move B, A. So this here is just going to back up the bytes. Okay, we'll need this later. CPI 1AH. Now remember, this is the end of file byte, right? Want to compare. Is end of file. And then, of course, you want to do a Z on zero flag, RZ. So basically, you're done. Return if so. But if not so, well, then call send byte. So what I do is, if not so, send the byte. So once you've sent the byte, increment, right? Increment H, increment buff address, decrement C, right? Decrement counter, and then basically JZ. So remember, zero flags are set, or flags are set on any arithmetic operation. So you don't have to even do a CPI 0 to check out 0. You just do a Z flag check right after your operation. So basically decrement C, JZ is if that operation was a 0. JZ, so if it's done, well, freadl. And do you remember why I have you jump back to freadl? Because freadl does the read, it does the file read, because basically if you have gone to the end without hitting a end of file character, then there might be more. So you go all the way back up to the freadl, which will then try to read the next record. And remember, if that record read fails, like there's nothing left, no other record in the file, well then you'll pop out, and so on. So next record loop. If not, right, just jump. Well, B read L, right, then just loop. Now let's go to the send byte function. So what I do basically is I send out a character, then do a loop waiting for you to get the character back. Because remember, you send out a character and usually you see the character come up on the screen. But remember, that's not the Altair doing it for you, or that's not the computer doing it for you. That's the target machine echoing it back to you. So I send the character, then immediately enter a loop, which will then wait for the character to come to you. Once that character's come to you, then you start the millisecond delay. You know, it's always okay to wait just a little bit longer in the millisecond delay anyway. You know, I'd much rather wait like an extra 2 or 3 milliseconds per character than cut 2 or 3 milliseconds per character. So let's do that. Move A, B. Remember a backed up character? So you store bytes to accumulator. Then out, because remember, we want to send it out CRTIO. Send out byte on CRTIO. And now CPI CR. Basically check if that byte was a carriage return. Check if carriage return. If so, JZ 50. Basically, I want to if so, wait 50 millisecond. Again, change this as you need. Side note, again, I will be continually updating this terminal, but maybe not making videos on it, because essentially after this, it's going to be done. I don't need it to do anything else. I'll maybe add like a menu so you can change the delay time, which would be awesome, and stuff like that. But you know, I might not make videos on it. But if you want to do that right now, go ahead, please. MVI, right, so jump to 50, right? So basically now, if it wasn't a carriage return, we're going to wait 20 milliseconds. MVI A20. Load 20 millis to A. Call delay. Subroutine. Jump read byte loop. Go to loop. Read byte loop. And then 50, right? So basically we loaded 20 before. We're going to do MVI A 50 instead this time. Load 50 millis to A. Instead of 50, I should probably call it like carriage return delay or something, you know, something like that. Call delay subroutine. And then now we can do read byte loop. In CRT base. Now, do you remember our main loop? We basically just copied that. I wanted to see if I could like hook into it, but there was, I probably could, but yeah, I just wanted it done, so I'm just gonna do it again. Check for byte on CRT. Check for byte on incoming line. Basically, RC rotate through carry, and then basically if it's set JC byte in, if there is byte jump to byte in, but if not, jump to our byte loop. If not so, loop. And then byte in CRTIO, right? Get incoming byte out TTYIO echo incoming byte, and then return. Fread error, basically this, I don't really have anything special, so we're just gonna basically say, yeah, you failed. File read error. So basically fread error, remember, is your file is done. File is done. Then let us make it the delay function, because we have that to do now. Delay MVI. Remember MS count, microsecond count, millisecond count? We're gonna move that to be MS count. Copy MS count to B. So MS count is a number that is calculated through a subroutine function explained in this manual. I will put a link in the description so you can see which page and code goes with that. It depends on the speed of your CPU and stuff like that. And then let's do the loop. Delay 1, decrement B, JNZ, delay 1. Basically, it's 2 nested loops. Decrement A, because remember that's your 50 or 20, that's your millisecond count. JNZ delay, and then return. And that is the delay loop. Memset, memcopy. We seem to be done. So now let us put in a few of those messages that we have put into call. Let's do open OK message. DB file to file opened. Okay, let's do open no K message. DB file not found. Then you're closing. And then let's do file name error message. DB file name too long, because that was the error. That looks good. Let me save, quit, and attempt to assemble. Okay, so let's try this. LP loads, sets the sim to file receive. Let's do Control S to send. Let's do basic.ptp. And look at that, we are sending the basic paper tape over. I know this worked before, so I will let it load, and if it works, that'd be awesome. If it doesn't, well, I'm sorry, that's not a problem with the software. That's actually a problem with my connection. I could probably loosen up the timings a bit, but yeah, I'm sending a paper tape over, and it's working exactly as expected. Again. This manual is a lifesaver. This manual, the CPM interface guide, contains all the information that you need to open files in 8080 assembly in CPM, and this is all I really went on. So please read this manual. I will put a link to it in the description again, along with the other CPM manual, and hopefully you guys will be able to make many cool things in 8080 assembly. And with that, this series is kind of done. As I said before, I may or may not make more videos. I know I don't have the file receiving part done. Again, if you read this manual, you'll be able to figure that out very easily, especially given the framework that I gave you. Please make changes, make extra menus, make extra features. Hell, add Xmodem if you want to. There's so many things you guys can do with this, and I really encourage you to do so. Anyway, with that, again, the series is done, and I'll see you next time.